What happens when a woman's life takes an unexpected turn, and she finds herself compelled to fight for her happiness and a better future? Sarah was about to fulfill her dream of marrying Michael, a promising young man who had just graduated from university. She felt on cloud nine, filled with hopes and plans for a future alongside him. However, the disapproval of Michael's mother, Rebecca, who did not see Sarah as the ideal partner for her studious son, loomed over their love like a shadow. Everything seemed perfect until, 2 weeks before the ceremony, an unexpected encounter would change her life forever. One afternoon, while walking in the park, Sarah came across an abandoned basket. Inside it, a dark-skinned baby looked up at her with big, innocent eyes. The maternal impulse led her to take the little one home, a gesture that, while filled with love, quickly turned into a dilemma. Her decision was met with criticism from a neighbor and suspicion from Michael, who, in a moment of rage, accused her of betrayal. In the blink of an eye, the future she had dreamed of crumbled. Michael left her, and Rebecca, with her disapproval, completely rejected her. Desolate and heartbroken, Sarah decided to change her life. She moved to her grandmother's house in a small rural village, bringing along the baby, whom she named Brian. The new life was not easy, the challenges were many, but Sarah was determined to raise Brian as her own child. Gradually, she established herself as the local nurse, finding purpose in caring for others and being the mother Brian needed. As the years passed, a new story began to unfold, but the past still haunted her. One day, Sarah's life took a new turn when a wealthy couple appeared at her door, revealing that Brian was actually the kidnapped son of a high-ranking diplomat. Although the couple took the boy back, Sarah was praised for her care and unconditional love, something she never imagined she would receive in return for her choice. The recognition for her dedication to Brian made her realize the value of her struggle. Over time, Charles, the couple's chauffeur, re-entered her life and confessed his admiration for Sarah. The connection between them grew, and eventually, they got married. Sarah became a respected surgeon and had 2 children with Charles. Life seemed to finally offer her a second chance, but fate still had a twist in store. 15 years later, while performing an emergency surgery, Sarah saved the life of a severely injured patient. To her surprise, he was Michael, her ex-fiancé. The encounter forced her to relive painful memories but also brought to light the strength she had developed over the years. Rebecca, Michael's mother, was present and, upon recognizing Sarah, felt a deep regret for how she had treated her in the past. She realized that if she had supported Sarah, their lives would have taken very different paths. In light of everything that had happened, Sarah not only overcame the challenges life imposed on her but also learned valuable lessons about love, acceptance, and the importance of following one's heart. Sarah's story is a testament to strength and determination, showing that even in the most difficult situations, there is always hope for a new beginning. Sarah clearly remembered the day her life turned upside down. The happiness she felt alongside Michael vanished in an instant, like a deflated balloon. The abandonment and rejection left her desolate, but the arrival of Brian in her life brought a new purpose. However, caring for a baby alone in a new city would not be easy. At her grandmother's house, Sarah faced daily challenges. Little Brian, though adorable, required constant attention. The sleepless nights were long and exhausting, but the boy's smile always brightened her days. Each diaper change and every feeding marked milestones of a new life she was learning to embrace. However, loneliness accompanied her. The longing for Michael and the pain of rejection from his mother echoed in her mind, creating a whirlwind of emotions. Sarah's grandmother, Dona Elvira, was a strong and wise woman. She had lived through her own struggles and understood what it meant to rise after a fall. Dona Elvira encouraged Sarah to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse, something she had always wanted. "Healing comes from within, my daughter," she would say. "You have much to offer the world." With those words, Sarah found motivation to move forward. She enrolled in nursing school, determined to build a future not just for herself, but also for Brian. However, the path was not easy. The classes were challenging, and the study routine added to the responsibility of caring for a baby. Sarah often felt overwhelmed, questioning her ability to balance everything. In a moment of despair, she decided she couldn't continue. But when she looked at Brian, she realized that giving up was not an option. He needed her, and she needed him. During this time, Sarah met some classmates who became her friends, but not all were understanding. Carla, a confident and ambitious young woman, often mocked Sarah for having a child so young. "You will never be able to be a good nurse and mother at the same time," she would say with a sarcastic smile. Those words hurt her deeply, but Sarah decided she would not allow Carla's negativity to affect her. She remembered what Dona Elvira always said: "Life is full of challenges, but you are stronger than you think." Over time, Sarah excelled in her class. Her passion for caring for others and her determination made her a respected student. However, as graduation approached, the challenges began to escalate. The pressure to succeed and do everything perfectly was immense, and Sarah started to question whether she could truly be both a mother and a professional. Moreover, life in the small village was filled with rumors. People began to comment on her past, and Sarah felt the judgmental gaze of some neighbors. This made her question whether she had made the right decision in bringing Brian into her life. The thought that she could be an inadequate mother tormented her. Could Carla's hurtful comments be true? Was she up to the challenge? With each passing day, the doubt became more unbearable. Sarah began to isolate herself, pulling away from the new friendships she had cultivated. She feared that her past and the criticism could ruin her accomplishments. With a heavy heart, she decided she needed some time alone to reflect. It was on one of those lonely days that Charles, the chauffeur of the couple who had taken Brian, appeared in her life again. He found her sitting on a park bench, tears in her eyes. Charles had always been kind and supportive, and his presence brought unexpected comfort. He listened as she vented about her insecurities and the pressure she felt. "You are much stronger than you think, Sarah," he said sincerely. "Life is full of new beginnings, and each one is an opportunity to grow." Charles's words resonated in her heart. It was in that moment that Sarah began to realize that, despite the challenges, she had accomplished a lot. Her love for Brian and her determination to become a nurse were not weaknesses, but rather her greatest strengths. She decided to face the obstacles head-on, not just for herself but also for Brian. He deserved a mother who believed in herself and her worth. Thus, despite the difficulties, Sarah began to rise again. She resolved not to let others' judgments paralyze her. With Charles's support, who was becoming increasingly important in her life, Sarah began to rebuild her confidence and find joy in the small victories. She was determined to show everyone, including herself, that she was capable of overcoming any challenge life presented her. As the days went by, Sarah began to feel the weight of the expectations surrounding her. The nursing program demanded a lot from her, and the pressure to stand out was constant. The classes became more challenging and the exams tougher. She often found herself studying late into the night while Brian slept in his crib, his small body warmed under a colorful blanket. However, the dark circles under her eyes began to accumulate on her face, and she realized her body was tired. The emotional stress also began to affect her physical health. She was not eating well and could barely find time to exercise. Tension built up in her shoulders and back, making her nights even more difficult. The aches became a constant in her routine, but even so, Sarah refused to give up. She thought of Brian and how he needed a strong and healthy mother. But the truth was that, despite her efforts, the shadow of doubt still followed her. The pressure mounted even more when the day of the final exam arrived. Sarah was nervous. The previous night was marked by anxiety and, once again, little sleep. As she entered the classroom, her heart raced. The questions seemed harder than ever, and insecurity took over. When she finished the exam, her fingers trembled. She felt like she had failed, a sensation that lingered for days until the results were announced. When the teacher announced that Sarah had passed, she felt a mix of relief and surprise. But the joy didn't last long. Carla, who had always belittled her, seized the opportunity to make a sarcastic comment. "Congratulations, Sarah. You managed to pass, even with all the distractions," she said, with a forced smile. Carla's words cut like a knife, and Sarah felt small and insecure once again. As she dealt with this new blow, Sarah was also facing challenges at home. Donna Elvira, who had always been her support, began to show signs of fatigue. Age was weighing heavily on her grandmother's shoulders, and Sarah noticed that her health was deteriorating. This left her anxious. She felt guilty for not being able to provide the support her grandmother needed while trying to care for Brian and study at the same time. Sleepless nights became more frequent, and the pressure intensified. In a moment of desperation, Sarah decided she needed help. That was when she began to open up to her classmates, revealing the challenges she was facing. Some of them, like Anna, who had always been kind, offered support and even volunteered to help her with Brian whenever possible. This friendship began to blossom, and Sarah realized she didn't have to face everything alone. Anna's solidarity brought a slight relief amidst the chaos. However, Sarah's struggle was not just external. Inside her, an internal conflict was growing. She began to question whether she could really be a good mother and a nurse at the same time. The critical voices, both from Carla and her own mind, echoed. "You're not capable," they said. This doubt haunted her during her most vulnerable moments, especially when she found herself alone at home, with Brian crying and tasks piling up. The situation reached a critical point when she had to choose between going to an important course presentation or staying home to care for Brian, who was sick. The little one had a fever, and Sarah found herself at a crossroads. She wanted to be the mother he needed, but she also knew that this presentation could be a crucial opportunity for her future. Guilt consumed her, and she decided to stay home. With a heavy heart, she dedicated herself to caring for Brian, but frustration and sadness over the missed opportunity tormented her. After this decision, a new wave of insecurity hit her. Sarah felt she was failing in her responsibilities as a student and a mother. She began to question whether she would even be able to graduate and whether her dream of being a nurse was still viable. The weight of these questions crushed her, and she started to distance herself again from her classmates, including Anna. The fear that her insecurities were visible to everyone isolated her even more. In this moment of vulnerability, Charles reappeared. He had always been around, but now, his presence was more comforting than ever. He encouraged her to talk about her feelings, and Sarah, reluctant, began to open her heart. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm not enough," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. Charles listened attentively, and instead of offering advice, he simply hugged her, showing that he was by her side. This simple gesture brought a bit of peace to the emotional turmoil surrounding her. Over time, Sarah's determination began to resurface. she decided she wouldn't let doubt dominate her. Inspired by Charles's support and the friendships she had cultivated, she chose to face her fears. Sarah began to rise again, step by step, teaching herself that it was possible to be both a mother and a nurse. She still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a bit stronger. As Sarah tried to find her balance between being a mother and a student, an unexpected event changed everything. One morning, upon waking up, she noticed that Brian was quieter than usual. At first, she thought he was just tired, but as the day went on, worry began to settle in her chest. The little one wasn't just running a fever, he seemed lethargic and without energy. Sarah's heart raced as she saw the color drain from his cheeks. With Anna's support, who offered to stay with Brian while she sought medical help, Sarah rushed to the hospital. Upon arrival, the waiting room was filled with mothers and children, but her desperation made her ignore the passing time. Every minute felt like an eternity. When she was finally called for the consultation, the doctor asked a few questions, and after a careful examination, the expression on her face changed. "Sarah, we need to do some more detailed tests," the doctor said in a serious tone. That phrase echoed in Sarah's mind like a bell, making her stomach churn. What could be happening to her child? What could be so serious? She felt paralyzed, holding Brian's hand tightly as the little one looked up at her with confused eyes. After hours of waiting, the diagnosis hit her like a punch to the stomach. Brian had an infection that would require intensive treatment. The doctor explained that he would need to be hospitalized for a few days to fully recover. Sarah felt the world collapse around her. Guilt and anxiety washed over her. How could she have let this happen? She thought of all the nights she stayed up studying and the moments she could have paid more attention to him. During those days of hospitalization, Sarah found herself battling her own demons. While Brian received care, she spent hours in a corner of the hospital, reflecting on her choices. The weight of her responsibilities felt unbearable. She thought about how the pressure to be a good student and a good mother made her forget what truly mattered: Brian's health and well-being. The critical voices that once haunted her were now replaced by an echo of regret. During the long hours at the hospital, Sarah began to realize that true strength wasn't just about passing exams or excelling in school. True strength was about being present for those she loved. When Brian woke up from a nap and saw her, his smile lit up the room, and at that moment, Sarah understood that success was not just about achieving academic goals but also about being a mother who stood by her child in the toughest times. Brian's hospitalization lasted a week, and during that time, Sarah made friends with other mothers facing similar challenges. They shared stories, laughter, and tears, which made her realize she was not alone. Each of them was fighting their own battles, and the strength they found in each other was inspiring. Sarah began to open up more, sharing her insecurities and fears. The solidarity she found among those women reminded her that being vulnerable was not a sign of weakness, but rather an essential part of the human experience. When Brian was finally discharged, Sarah felt a mix of relief and gratitude. What could have been a devastating event turned into a valuable lesson. Holding him in her arms, she promised herself to prioritize both her emotional health and his. She realized that the pressure she felt to be perfect was self-imposed, and instead of comparing herself to others, she should focus on her own path. Upon returning to college, Sarah was determined to change her approach. She spoke with her professors about her course load and asked for help in organizing her time more effectively. She reconnected with Anna and other classmates who were more than willing to support her. Together, they formed a study group that not only helped with their classes but also provided a safe space to share fears and accomplishments. Through this process, Sarah began to see her imperfections not as barriers but as opportunities for growth. She understood that success was not a finish line but a journey filled with ups and downs. With this new perspective, she felt stronger and more capable of facing the challenges that lay ahead. The journey would be long, but now, armed with love, friendship, and a new outlook on what truly mattered, Sarah was ready to fight. After Brian's hospitalization, Sarah's life began to transform in ways she never imagined. Upon returning home, the house that once felt like a refuge now seemed like a mountain of responsibilities. The smell of homemade food and the sound of children's laughter echoing through the neighborhood reminded her of what she most desired, a healthy balance between being a mother and a student. However, the memories of Brian's hospitalization still weighed heavily on her heart, and guilt followed her like a shadow. In the days that followed, Sarah struggled to adjust to the new routine. She woke up earlier to prepare breakfast, pack Brian's bag, and still find time to review her notes. Each small task felt monumental, and the pressure to be perfect remained present. Sometimes, she found herself thinking that if it weren't for her academic ambition, she might not have been distracted enough to ignore the early signs that something was wrong with Brian. This reflection left her restless, and anxiety visited her frequently. One night, while Brian slept peacefully, Sarah sat at the kitchen table surrounded by books and sheets of paper. The lamp's light illuminated her tired face, and the tension in her shoulders was palpable. She wanted to focus on her studies, but her mind wandered to the fragility of life. How could she dedicate herself to her studies knowing that in the blink of an eye, everything could change? This uncertainty left her uneasy. It was then that Anna, her friend and classmate, decided to visit her. Upon entering the house, Anna immediately sensed that something was wrong. "Hi, Sarah. How are you?" she asked with a concerned expression. Sarah smiled shyly, but her eyes betrayed the truth. "I'm trying to get organized, but it's hard," she confessed. Anna sat down beside her and encouraged her to talk. Sarah vented about her insecurities, the weight she felt on her shoulders, and how guilt consumed her. Anna listened attentively, offering words of comfort. "You're not alone in this. No one can do everything perfectly all the time. What matters is that you're here for Brian now," Anna said with an encouraging smile. The conversation with Anna helped Sarah realize that she needed to be kinder to herself. However, the pressure of final exams was approaching, and new obstacles emerged. The fear of not keeping up with classes and missing opportunities grew each day. She felt she should be a dedicated mother and an exemplary student, but the two demands seemed to clash. On one of those intensely pressured days, Sarah decided to seek out the course coordinator. With a lump in her throat, she entered the room and laid out her difficulties. To her surprise, the coordinator not only listened but also offered her support. "You're not the only one going through this, Sarah. Many student mothers face similar challenges. Let's see how we can adjust your schedule," she suggested. The conversation brought unexpected relief, and Sarah realized that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. Over time, Sarah began to learn how to balance her responsibilities. She set specific study times but also made sure to reserve quality moments with Brian. On a sunny Saturday, they decided to have a picnic in the park. As the leaves danced in the wind, Sarah watched Brian run and play, and her heart filled with gratitude. Simple moments like that reminded her of what truly mattered. However, the journey was not without its difficulties. Sarah still battled anxiety and the feeling that she wasn't doing enough. At times, she felt overwhelmed. One night when she couldn't sleep, she thought about all the challenges still ahead. The thought of failing in her studies consumed her, But in that moment of introspection, she decided to write down her feelings in a journal. Putting her worries on paper helped relieve some of the pressure she felt. Through these small changes, Sarah began to see life from a new perspective. She allowed herself to feel and express her emotions, which helped her confront the guilt that followed her. On days of discouragement, she remembered Anna's words and the conversations with the coordinator. The journey to become the mother and student she aspired to be was long, but now she was more aware of her limitations and more open to receiving support. Thus, even in the face of new challenges, Sarah began to thrive. With each step, she grew stronger, more confident, and more capable of navigating the complexities of life. Through her love for Brian and the connections she made, the pressure that once suffocated her transformed into motivation. The journey still had its difficulties, but she was willing to face it all, believing that each day was a new opportunity to learn and grow. One morning, while packing Brian's backpack, she reflected on how lost she felt. The memories of her son's hospitalization still haunted her, and guilt made her question her choices. Sarah realized she needed to trust herself more and accept that she didn't have to be perfect. It was then, in a moment of vulnerability, that she decided it was time to seek help. That day, while talking to the course coordinator, she felt relieved. The words of support and understanding touched her deeply. She was not alone. Many mothers were facing similar challenges, and this made her realize that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength. This new perspective encouraged her to look at herself with more generosity. With the support of the coordinator and the friendship of Anna, Sarah began to rebuild herself. She established a new routine that balanced her studies and time with Brian. What once seemed like a mountain of responsibilities had now transformed into a challenge she was willing to face. During the afternoons, Sarah set aside moments to play with Brian, and those joyful instances helped her recharge her energy. She realized that academic success was not the only indicator of worth. Love and connection with her son were equally important. Over time, Sarah began to apply the lessons she had learned. She committed to being kinder to herself, accepting that failure was part of growth. On one of those reflective days, while writing in her journal, she realized that each mistake was an opportunity for learning. This shift in mindset helped her see the beauty in imperfections and value every small progress. Even in the face of difficulties, Sarah's transformation was evident. She had become a stronger and more confident woman. The fear of failure still existed, but now it was accompanied by renewed determination. She began to understand that success was not just about achieving the best grades, but about finding a balance that allowed her to be a present mother and a dedicated student. Her friendship with Anna also evolved during this process. Anna became a confidant, a sister always ready to offer support and encouragement. Together, they shared laughter, tears, and advice, and this connection helped Sarah face her internal conflicts. Having someone who understood her made her feel less alone on her journey. On a sunny day, while they were in the park, Sarah looked at Brian playing on the grass and felt a profound love and gratitude. That simple moment, away from academic demands, was what truly mattered. She realized that happiness was not found solely in achievements, but in the moments shared with those she loved. This reflection brought a new clarity to her life. Sarah's journey was not easy, but each challenge led her to a place of greater wisdom and understanding. She learned to accept that life was full of ups and downs, and that every experience, good or bad, contributed to her growth. The idea that success was something deeper than material possessions began to resonate in her heart. True success lay in her ability to love, learn, and adapt. With time, Sarah started to see that each small step she took toward overcoming her challenges was a step toward a fuller life. She learned to celebrate her achievements, no matter how small they were. The life lessons she absorbed became part of her, shaping her worldview. Looking to the future, Sarah knew there would still be challenges, but now she was equipped with a new perspective. She had confidence in herself, valued the friendships she cultivated, and understood that love was the force that drove her. The journey of overcoming and growing had no end, but each day was a new opportunity to reinvent herself and embrace life with courage. As the sun set on the horizon, Sarah found herself facing one of the most challenging moments of her life. The phone rang, and the course coordinator, who had always been her support, called to inform her that due to an unforeseen change, she would have to present an important project in just 2 days. Sarah's heart raced. How could she prepare for this without neglecting her care for Brian? The pressure felt unbearable. She sat on the couch, looking at her son playing on the living room rug. Guilt began to seep into her thoughts. Was it selfish to want academic success while Brian still needed her? The internal struggle intensified, and the fear of failure paralyzed her. What did she really want? To be a present mother or to achieve her goals? These questions echoed in her mind, and she felt as if she was on the edge of an abyss. In the moments that followed, memories of her journey began to surface. She remembered the sleepless nights, the tears shed, and the victories, no matter how small. Sarah realized she could not let fear take control. She took a deep breath, seeking that strength she had discovered over the months. With a new focus, she decided she would not give up. The next day, she woke up early, determined to face the challenge. Sarah made a plan. She would divide her time between studying and playing with Brian. As the day went on, she immersed herself in books and notes, but instead of getting lost in the pressure, she found a space to be creative. With each page read, she felt more confident. The words began to flow, and the presentation that once felt like a burden transformed into an opportunity to showcase all she had learned. At that point, Anna noticed that Sarah was overwhelmed and decided to step in. She showed up at Sarah's house with a snack and a smile. "Let's study together?" "You don't have to do this alone," Anna said, wrapping her friend in a tight hug. That simple gesture brought a wave of relief. Sarah understood that she was not alone in this battle. Their friendship solidified, and together, they dedicated themselves to reviewing the material. On the day of the presentation, Sarah was nervous but also filled with a new determination. She looked at Brian, who was watching her with bright eyes, and felt a wave of love. To him, she was a hero, no matter the outcome. As she entered the room, her breath was quickened, but she remembered the lessons she had learned. Failures do not define who we are, and true success goes beyond grades. When she began to speak, the words flowed naturally. Sarah shared her experiences, her vulnerabilities, and how each challenge had shaped her. The audience listened attentively, and she realized that her story resonated with many people. The connection she felt with those faces made her feel stronger. Every smile and nod encouraged her to continue. At the end of the presentation, there was a moment of silence, followed by warm applause. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude. What had once seemed unattainable had now become an achievement. She had not only presented a project but had also shared her story of overcoming and resilience. Emotion washed over her, and when she looked at Brian, she saw he was as proud as she was. On the way home, Sarah reflected on everything she had experienced. The failures that haunted her, the insecurities, and the fear of not being enough were left behind. She had found her inner strength and now knew that success was not just about grades or recognition, but about getting back up after each fall and continuing to fight. When she arrived home, Brian ran into her arms. He exclaimed how incredible she was, and his words touched her heart in a way she had never felt before. In that moment, Sarah realized she had achieved something far greater than a simple academic victory. She had strengthened the bonds of love and friendship, and that was the true wealth of life. Sarah's journey did not end there, but she was ready for whatever came next. With each challenge, she grew stronger and more confident. Life was filled with ups and downs, but now, with the certainty that love and friendship were the pillars of her happiness, she felt more prepared than ever to face whatever lay ahead. After the presentation, Sarah felt the weight of her insecurities dissipate. It was not just an academic victory, it was a step toward a future she was beginning to visualize clearly. As she returned home, the path seemed brighter, and the atmosphere around her was filled with possibilities. Brian was radiant. He was bouncing around Sarah, his little feet barely touching the ground. He wanted to know more about the presentation, and that filled Sarah's heart with joy. She told him she spoke about how he inspired her to be better every day, stroking his hair as he smiled, a genuine smile that lit up the room. When they got home, Sarah found Anna waiting for her with a beaming smile. Anna exclaimed how she knew Sarah would do amazing, expressing how moved she was by the presentation. That connection made Sarah realize that her struggles were not only hers but shared by everyone around her. The support from friends and Brian's joy were crucial in helping her face her fears. That night, while Brian slept, Sarah sat at the kitchen table and began to reflect. The soft light from the lamp illuminated the pages of her notebook where she used to write her thoughts. She asked herself what she truly wanted for the future. The previously troubling questions now seemed clearer. She wanted to be a present mother but also wished to pursue her academic dreams. Life didn't have to be a choice between one or the other. It could be a balance between being a mother and a professional. In the days that followed, Sarah decided she would not let the adrenaline from her presentation fade away. She sought ways to continue her studies and found a support group at the university where other mothers were facing similar challenges. The meetings became valuable moments where they exchanged experiences, supported each other, and shared tips on managing family and academic life. Over time, Sarah's confidence grew. She began to get more involved in Brian's school activities, attending meetings and events. The sense of belonging brought new meaning to her life. She realized that by opening herself up to the community, she could not only help others but also help herself. The loneliness that once accompanied her was replaced by friendship and mutual support. One afternoon, while watching Brian play at the park, Sarah realized that happiness was found in the little things. His laughter, the shining sun, and the simplicity of moments like that made her feel complete. She told Brian he was her greatest gift, and he responded with a wide smile and a tight hug. Those simple moments were what truly mattered. As time went by, Sarah began to feel more comfortable in her new routine. She enrolled in more courses and even started planning her next project. The idea of becoming a mentor for other mothers at the university also began to blossom in her mind. The experiences she had lived through could be shared, and she envisioned how she could help other women find their path. One afternoon, while talking with Anna, Sarah shared her plans. She expressed her desire to help other mothers see that it is possible to balance everything. If she could do it, they could too, she said with a sparkle in her eyes. Anna enthusiastically agreed. Sarah, you are an inspiration. Let's do this together. Sarah's journey was no longer just about her own challenges. It was about creating a space where other women could find support and strength. The fear and insecurity that once paralyzed her were now distant memories. She had learned that it was possible to succeed and be a present mother at the same time. Life had its ups and downs, but with love, friendship, and determination, she was ready to face anything. The changes that occurred in her life were not just internal, they affected everyone around her. Brian had become more confident, watching his mother strive and achieve her dreams. To him, Sarah was more than a mother. She was a hero who showed that courage and determination could transform life. And so, together, mother and son embraced the future, ready for whatever came next. Sarah looked back and saw how her journey had transformed her. The insecurities that once accompanied her were replaced by a newfound confidence. She remembered her sleepless nights, the doubts that haunted her, and the moments when she felt alone. Now, surrounded by Anna's friendship and Brian's unconditional love, she understood that overcoming challenges was a path filled with obstacles but also with rewards. Meetings with other mothers at the university became a space for exchange and learning. Together, they shared their experiences, spoke about their struggles, and celebrated their victories. Sarah realized that by offering support, she was also supporting herself. What had started as a personal quest for fulfillment had turned into a collective mission of empowerment. She saw other women flourishing just as she had, and this filled her with pride. Her relationship with Brian also strengthened. He had become more confident and curious, always asking about his mother's projects and getting involved in school activities. Sarah noticed that her transformation directly reflected in her son's life. He was learning that love and determination could take him anywhere. She felt fulfilled seeing Brian grow in an environment where effort and passion were valued. Over time, Sarah decided it was time to take a bigger step. She began planning an event at the university, a gathering for mothers who wanted to balance career and motherhood. The idea was to create a strong, united support network where each woman could feel welcomed and inspired. Excitement filled her, and the thought of helping other mothers find their way motivated her even more. The day of the event arrived, and Sarah was nervous but excited. Looking at the group of women gathered, she felt a wave of gratitude. Each of them brought their stories, struggles, and hopes. The connection formed in that space was palpable. Sarah shared her journey, her achievements, and the challenges she had faced. In the end, the women united in a collective embrace, celebrating the strength they found in each other. This experience solidified the transformation Sarah had undergone. She was no longer just a mother seeking her place in the world. She was a mentor, a friend, and a source of inspiration. The happiness that once seemed distant was now part of her daily life. Believing in herself allowed others to believe as well, and this was a legacy she cherished. Returning home that night, Sarah hugged Brian tightly. He looked into her eyes and said, "Mom, you're the best." And in that moment, she knew that success was not measured solely by academic or professional achievements, but also by the ability to touch the lives of others and make a difference. Sarah's journey taught her that the true meaning of success goes far beyond individual accomplishments. It was about building connections, finding support, and, above all, understanding that happiness lies in the small things in everyday life. She had learned to cherish every shared laugh, every heartfelt conversation, and every family moment. The future was now a blank canvas, and Sarah felt ready to paint it with the colors of hope, love, and friendship. Life was a collective journey, and together, she and the other women were prepared to face whatever lay ahead. With a heart full of gratitude and an open mind for new possibilities, Sarah knew her story was just beginning. And you, what stories of overcoming and transformation do you carry? Share your experiences in the comments. Together, we can create a space of support and inspiration. Don't forget to like and subscribe to receive more stories that touch the heart and remind us of the strength we all have within us. The time to act is now.